Good morning, everyone. Today's meeting is hosted on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service area is located on the Coasalish and the Kwakwak and the New Challuch. I got that correctly? Territories. So we're going to call the meeting to order and agenda approval. Thank you. So we got no in camera. Adoption of minutes. I'm sorry. Do we have to vote on approval? Well, sometimes you can vote on it, sometimes don't. So vote on approval. All in favor of approval? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Adoption of minutes. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Business arising, none. Petition and delegations, none. Reports, none. Solid waste management plan, step 2 engagement plan. Reported dated the 13th of April 2023 regarding the breakdown of the proposed solid waste management plan. Renewal step 2 engagement plan for receipt. Thank you. Discussion on receipt. Deputy CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, directors. My name is James Warren. I'm Deputy CAO and sitting in for Russell Dyson this morning. I'm pleased to introduce Sarah Willie. Sarah is our Sarah is our Manager of Solid Waste Planning and Policy Development, and Sarah will be introducing the staff report, and I believe we also have a presentation from our consultant supporting this work. So over to Sarah.
Thank you through the chair, through the CAO, and good morning to everyone. Pleased to present along with our consultant, Katie Hamilton from Tavola, on our planned engagement for step 2 of the solid waste management plan. So for those who were with us from the start, we kicked this off in the fall and we held engagement through November, December, and we're very successful in reaching our audience across the region. And in the second phase of consultation, we'll be going out to the public in person, attending a number of events this year. We're pleased to have Katie working with us on this engagement plan. Tavola has worked with the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service on a number of other projects as well. And so she has a good foundation and familiarization with our service. I'll let Katie present on the plan itself, but just as a small update on how the advisory, the Regional Solid Waste Management Advisory has been going. I'm really pleased with the participation that we've had from the group. We've had 3 meetings as well as a facility tour, an all-day facility tour, where we visited 5 different facilities around the region, including the Make It Zone, the Tool Library. We went to the Comox Valley Waste Management Center. We went to Pacific Wood Waste. We visited Habitat for Humanity, and as well, we had lunch at Lush, which was great to learn as well about how they're working to reduce food waste. So yeah, I've been really pleased. We've been working on the goals as well as the guiding principles, and we were able to finalize those in our last meeting, and we'll be bringing those forward to the board at the next board meeting. And then we're working through the existing system study now, so getting them familiar with each of the facilities across our entire service. So happy that that's moving forward, and really pleased with the collaboration and the positive atmosphere and approach that people are bringing to that conversation. So without further ado, pleased to have Katie Hamilton from Tavola joining us from Victoria today to present on the step 2 plan.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'll share my screen, Sarah. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Katie.
Great. Great. And can everyone see that?
Yes, thanks.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'm really pleased to be here this morning to provide sort of a brief overview of the more detailed plan that you have in your agenda package. So we'll touch on sort of the high level approach over the coming months so that the board is aware of what to expect and all of the various planning that's gone into this next stage of public consultation, what we're referring to as step 2 public consultation for the solid waste management plan. So as I'm sure you're aware, the province of BC requires through the Environmental Management Act that all regional districts submit a solid waste management plan for approval. And those plans can only be submitted after sufficient public and stakeholder consultation has occurred. And the province does provide a very robust guide for best practices in terms of public consultation and how to satisfy the ministry's requirements. And so we have established that as one of our objectives. You'll see within the engagement approach is to meet and or exceed the province's requirements for consultation. Using the CVRD's public participation spectrum as just sort of a guide to ground the level of public participation in this process. The broad public will be engaged at the level of inform and consult for step 2. That you'll see results in various tools and techniques that include open houses, online surveys, stakeholder presentations and outreach. And also because we are working so closely with the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee, which represents a diverse perspectives and interests across the service area, they're at the level of involve in terms of just a bit of more of a deeper involvement within the process. And those two parallel tracks of working closely with the advisory committee and the broad engagement that will commence later this spring all comes together to inform the plan, and we'll continually provide updates and work with the committee as well as provide updates to the board as we proceed. The recommendations and the draft solid waste management plan obviously result in a plan that then is taken forward to the board for consideration and then submitted to the Ministry of Environment, but we have a number of steps before we're at that stage. So you're familiar with these steps. I won't go into too much detail, but just to highlight where we are, the process that was initiated in the fall really sort of set the process into motion. The really great engagement that happened in that first step will also help. We'll build on that in step 2 in terms of what we heard from the communities around how they like to receive information and how they like to engage and their level of engagement within the solid waste management system. And so that will help inform and has informed the plan that is in front of you today, really setting into motion an active engagement phase between June to October of this year. We have 4 communications and consultations objectives. The first one is really around, largely around awareness and education, and that's to increase understanding about how solid waste is managed in the region and how its effective management supports quality of life. So the existing systems report and that information that you'll be receiving from the staff team really will help build that foundation so that we can really tell the story of solid waste and how it impacts and how the communities relate to it and the importance of how it's managed within the communities. The second is to make solid waste management process understandable and accessible to citizens across the region by using plain language, using a blend of in-person and digital channels, and making it interesting. There is, a real story to tell, but we have to be sure that we're sort of setting a solid foundation that's really accessible for folks, because not everybody lives and breathes solid waste every day. The third is to engage a broad, geographically representative and diverse range of residents and stakeholders about the solid waste management system and potential future directions. And this really acknowledges that, we have a real diversity of communities and different services that Comox Strathcona offers, and people engage with the system differently. And so they also receive information differently and engage in different ways. And so we really want to recognize that and ensure that we're tailoring it to the different needs. And then the fourth, as I said, is to meet or exceed the legislative requirements for public consultation as set out by the Ministry of Environment. And so we do exercise a lot of diligence in terms of recording what we hear and producing comprehensive reports that can be submitted both to the board and to the community in terms of transparency and for the community to see where their input was collected, what was heard, and then how it has influenced the process going forward. And we use those reports to supplement the plan when it does go to the province for approval, so that it's a very clear outline of the consultation undertaken. So in terms of the overall approach, you'll see the weigh-in on waste is sort of the brand that will continue to run through the consultation process, building on the awareness that was established in the first phase this fall. Really want to tell the story, that accessible, engaging written and visual content, accurate and complete picture of the existing and potential future opportunities and challenges that the system presents. We want to remove barriers, so we want to make it accessible, multi-channel, ample notice of opportunity. And so we really do want to be sure that, we do have a very extensive timeline going from sort of June to end of September that allows us a lot of time for conversation and awareness building. And so we want to be sure that folks are aware of the opportunities to engage. And we really want to go to where the people are. Summer is an excellent time to engage in person with folks in popular community settings and events that are already being undertaken. And so we're really looking at what communities are offering and piggybacking on that. And then we want to close the loop and share what was heard and how it informed the recommendations and next steps. The key topics for this stage or step 2 of the consultation process is one is the role of solid waste management and the importance of managing waste effectively, presenting the opportunities and challenges of the existing system and identifying future needs, and then the guiding principles and goals for the next solid waste management plan and seeking feedback from the broader community on those. There's a very detailed stakeholder list within your package that has been informed by the Regional Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And really it recognizes that solid waste management affects everyone in the region in some way and in different ways, that diversity of perspective is needed, and we need to balance broad public input with also stakeholder input, those stakeholders that are really more engaged or involved or affected by the solid waste management system. So we want to bring all of that input together. Consultation with First Nations will also occur, but through a separate process led by both CSWM staff and with support from CVRD and Strathcona Regional District. In terms of engagement techniques, we have both those for awareness raising and those for collecting input. And so we will be doing direct letters to a long list of stakeholders. There'll be print and digital advertising to raise awareness of the many opportunities earned in social media, so news media as well as social, educational video around the system itself, and then obviously a variety of print materials, whether that's displays or handouts that can be shared in various events. In terms of how we'll collect input, there will be the first landfill open house and tour will be offered, and so that's a great opportunity to hear from folks and engage in a different way around the system. An online survey, and then a host of community events across the service area. In-person and virtual open houses, which we will host at the end of the process, back when people are back from summer holidays. So really want to focus on building a lot of awareness and outreach throughout the initial summer months, and then we'll have a virtual and an in-person open house in later in September, as well as we'll collect input through a variety of ways in terms of emails and letters, and we'll compile all of that, and that'll all result in a what we heard consultation summary. We've identified a number of events that are happening across the various communities. So we've included a list of those. It will start with the landfill open house at the start of the process, and then there'll be the outreach team will be out with sort of a pop-up display at a variety of events throughout the summer. And we're looking to launch in June. Obviously, the board will be receiving quite a bit of information related to this process prior to that. And that information will also be informing the materials and the information and the various tools that we'll be developing for the process, with that active engagement from June to September. And then we'll be back in the fall with that consultation summary to present to the board of directors. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Dr. Arbor. Did that not work? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks to staff for this really good work, and it's really good to see all the level of outreach that is very extensive that is coming up over the next number of months. And as well, I'd like to note that when we reviewed the composition of the public advisory, I was also very impressed. I think you mentioned the diversity and the number of people that are involved, and I think we've got all the ingredients to end up with a solid waste management plan that reflects the values of the community. So I'm really excited about that. My question was just in regard to, there was a comment about obviously doing consultation with First Nation, and it's just the use of that word consultation, whether, because I know at the province and the federal, it's got a specific meaning, and rather than engagement or something like that. So it can staff kind of expand a little bit on what is intended and the kind of level of engagement or consultation we'll have with our First Nation partners?
Nope, sorry, I just killed you. There we go.
Thank you. Yes, we've been throughout this process. We've identified two groups of First Nations. So those who have residents living within the communities that rely on services provided by CSWM. And we've been doing more thorough engagement with those 10 communities. And then we have an additional, I think it's 33 communities that we've reached out to by letter. And so following that, we have two or three that did ask for, continued information as the process moves forward. So we've added them to our correspondence list. With those 10 nations that have communities within our service, we continue to reach out to them individually. We've had meetings with, I think, 3 now. We're organizing an event with Hamelco region this weekend to support them on an Earth Day event that they're hosting. So Lindsay Eason, our educator, is going to be out there supporting them to improve composting and reduce contamination in their recycling stream. For any of the nations, we've offered to come out and meet. So we did have the opportunity to present to Chief and Council with Hamelco, and we've met with the CAO for Mochilat. So yeah, those opportunities continue to present themselves at a pace that meets where the nations themselves are at. So, as we go into each of these communities, like Zabalas, we'll be, making sure to reach out to the First Nations communities in that area and making sure they're aware of those events as well, and trying to piggyback on those. So wherever they're at, what we're really offering in conjunction with awareness about the solid waste management plan and how it might impact those nations is really just letting them know about the resources that we as CSWM have that can support them in the services that they're providing to their residents. So whether that's educational tools, presentations, events, and some of that isn't new. Some of that's work that Stephanie, our coordinator, has been doing with those communities, but I think it's helping to raise the profile of those opportunities. So there's a conference coming up, I think next week, ISWATAG, so it's the Indigenous Zero Waste Network, and we have Stephanie's going over to present some of the partnerships there, and Asley Millwood, who's the coordinator for First Nations with the SRD that works with CSWM, is also going to be attending. So they'll learn more about opportunities for grants and education tools specific to First Nations communities around solid waste. So yeah, lots happening.
Thank you. Director Sullivan.
Thank you. About the engagement, I'm a little sad to see that there's no representative from Cumberland. On the 19th meeting, we were given a list of the public who were chosen, and I just don't see a representative from the host community of Cumberland, which I find a little concerning. Just wondering what that's about.
Yeah, we received applications from, I think it was 51 members of the community through the advisory process. There were some applicants from Cumberland. It was, almost difficult to narrow it down to 15. Really, we had so many strong applicants. And so where we were trying to ensure representation was members of the community that brought with them, not just a passion for waste, but perhaps also they were involved with an industry or a sector, and they could bring that perspective. So within the folks there, we did our best to provide representation. Unfortunately, we can't have somebody from every single community. We do have a technical representative from the Village of Cumberland who's participating thoroughly.
Thank you.
Thank you. So community engagement is something that really gets me excited. So I really appreciate the work you're doing with this, and we'll continue to do with this. There's some common themes that I hear from the public around why can't I put out 12 bags of organics every week because I have lots of trees in my yard, or why can't my strata get organics pick up? So just common themes that keep picking up. I'm wondering if you're hearing kind of common hot button issues that are coming up in these various community engagement methods, and if so, I think having some responses both for politicians and staff and other leaders in the community to kind of have to respond. So if someone makes a comment about A, we know we can say, okay, there's these key points that we can say back. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that comment. I think that's something that we can bring together. Certainly there are a number of issues, especially with the organics rollout in the urban areas. They're pretty consistent. As the services offered by each of the 4 municipalities are slightly different as they move forward, it has to be a little bit tailored, but yeah, definitely that's something we can provide. I think in the advisory level, some of the issues that have come up are really around, does my recycling even get recycled? What happens to it? I think that's an issue that we see in the public realm, as well as it was probably the first question that came out through the advisory process. So I think the tour, I forgot to mention Mterra was one of the facilities that we went to. And I think that had a strong impact on folks in understanding where, the path was for their recycling, and it helped to reinforce that. So yes, that's, we'll make a note and something that staff can bring forward.
Okay, we're still on receipt. Any other questions? No, so on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And the recommendation is that the solid waste management plan renewal, step 2 engagement plan attached as appendix A to this April 13th, 2023 staff report be approved. Director Gerd, Director McComb, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. The CSWM resolution status report. Resolution that the report dated April 2023 for receipt. Discussion? All in favor? Oh, that was so close. Director Harbour, one moment. There we go.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's interesting because we've renamed the management report the resolutions report, which I like. And one thing I didn't find on the resolution report was our resolution to AVICC. And I thought I would just make a note of that the resolution that we passed for advocacy to improve access to recycling for rural and remote communities did pass as part of consent package. And the AVICC group noted that similar resolution had been submitted in the last 5 years, like 3 or 4 times. So I think it's really good for places like around the Oyster River or Fanny Bay, places where there's real gaps, to know that this is a recurring theme and our board is right on point in pushing this issue. So I just had to make note of that. Otherwise, Chair, I don't have any questions on the resolutions.
Okay, thank you. So all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Bylaws and resolutions. First, second, and third reading. The recommended resolution being the Comox Waste Management Municipal Ticket Information Bylaw 460/2017, Amendment number 1. That the bylaw 761 being Comox Strathcona Waste Management Municipal Ticket Information Bylaw 460/2017, Amendment number 1 be given first, second, and third reading. Motion, please. Just first. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I added third, just first and second.
Just first.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. And that the bylaw, did you already do the second one? Is that what you're telling me, Mr. What?
Mr. Mayor Bob did.
Mayor Bob did? Okay, so we already moved third. I don't have to read it. We have a second from Director Graves. Okay, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Recommendation by law. Let's see that the number 762 being the Strathcona Waste Management Bylaw, Adjudication Ticket Bylaw, number 687, 2021, Amendment 1, be given first and second reading concurrently. Motion, please. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that bylaw 762 being Strathcona, Comox Strathcona Waste Management Bylaw, Adjudication Bylaw number 687, 2021, Amendment 1 be given third reading. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. New business, none. Oh, do we have a hand up? Oh, sorry, Director Kerr. You're muted.
I am muted. I can't turn the speaker off. Okay, let's. Okay, can you hear me, Chair Breaker?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
We've got some severe feedback here. Just see if we can get rid of it.
Somebody has to turn their speaker off. Yeah, don't mute yourself though, Ron.
Says they're in a room together, they all have speakers. Yeah, there's one or two people in there.
Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. So my motion is that the board renew the host community agreement between the City of Campbell River and the Comox Valley Regional District, which expired December 31st, 2022, to support the ongoing maintenance and cleanup of Argonaut Road as a consequence of the city hosting a regional waste transfer station and the new regional organics facility.
Okay, we still need a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence.
Second, Director Vinesh.
Vinesh, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Just to be clear, we're voting on C.
Yes. Director Arbor. Let me just hit the button here. There you go.
Thanks, Chair. I note that the correspondence outlines that the agreement expired as of December 31st, 2022, so a couple of months ago. So I'd just like to know if staff can explain why that is and whether there was negotiations attempted and if they failed, or any background that would be relevant to us passing this recommendation.
Okay, Deputy CAO.
Thank you, Chair. And certainly there is background and history to this agreement between the city and the regional district. And rather than trying to provide the directors with all of that background and history right now, I would encourage the board to pass a motion to refer this to staff to come back with such a report at a future meeting. It wouldn't take a long time to pull that material together, and we could come back to the next board meeting with that background.
Okay, next in line is, see lights up here, number 6. There you go, Director Wells.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I had similar question around the fact that we don't have a clear understanding as a board of what the previous agreement was or what the rationale was for providing one. I can certainly understand that if there's a community that's really impacted by the entire services waste system, that there is a rationale for providing an agreement. And so I would just like to have a better understanding of how that applies to Campbell River's request specifically, as it's my understanding that the transfer station is mostly for their community, but yeah, maybe if staff could just include that that background information, just so we have a better a better understanding of what the host community agreements are meant to compensate for or provide. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go to Director Wells, then Cole Hamilton, and then Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think my question got pretty much in line, but really, as Director McCollum was saying, that there is that transfer station, but I think probably the critical part is the organics facility, which is newer and kind of probably we may require a little bit of information around that part of it that might help get us up to speed as well.
Thank you. Director Cole Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Following on that line of comments, I believe we're currently on receipt, but when we've dispensed with that, I would be very happy to make a motion along the lines suggested by Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Director Chapman. Oh, let me press your button first. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. I can understand how some history would be important for people to make a decision, but what's happened has happened, and we just need to fix what has happened. And one thing we could do is to move forward with this, and we can come back with reports later. I don't think that's critical in order to move forward and with this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still on receipt. Director Kerr, do you have more to add on receipt?
Yes, thank you, Chair Baker. Yeah, there was an information package supplied with the motion here. The motion was given a meeting in advance, which gave staff lots of time to prepare this staff report that they're suggesting needs now to be included. And basically what we're asking is not something new. It's same as previous. So it's just a continuation of what has existed and what has been accepted as necessary.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're still on receipt. Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. Based on the discussion, it's not I'm not opposed to us obviously having an agreement, and I think Mayor Wells had a good point around the regional organics facility being a change. And I'm just wondering, I still think we should be timely. Like if we ask for a staff report on this, it should be at the next meeting. I did appreciate that the letter from Dr. Kerr did include the past agreement. It's just I feel not knowing enough about it. I would be probably reluctant to move forward with a lot of questions probably remaining in my mind. And it doesn't mean I'm not supportive. It's just I want to be informed around what a new agreement would look like, especially with the regional organics, as Mayor Wells said.
Thank you, Director Wells.
Yeah, and I think just for comfort for Director Kerr, one of the things that dawns on me is one of the pieces of information I don't have is what's the consequence of there not being an agreement today, and whether or not that consequence is dire or not, or whether or not we could say in lieu of a full agreement, we continue as if that is extended until we get that report back, and then we can potentially just gets renewed as it is, but maybe there's opportunities to make it better. The last agreement was 2019. We may have learned a few things in terms of making it better. So I just don't really, it comes down to what's the consequence right now? What's happened since the agreement has expired, and is there need for it to be renewed today?
I could respond.
You want to go ahead? So we'll go to the deputy CAO first, and then we'll go to Cole Hamilton.
Thanks. Just a couple of points. One, yes, I do appreciate that Director Kerr submitted this correspondence and it's on the agenda. I think that's the intent of putting this correspondence onto agenda, so the directors have full information of what's being asked. The request here is to directly renew that agreement, not so much to provide the background information on the previous agreement and what conditions existed at the time and what has changed since then. That's the information that we could come back with to provide the board with that full context. One point to note, I think, is that the previous agreement was around the landfill itself, and the landfill now, of course, has closed, and there's a transfer station and an organics facility. So the context of the agreement and the situation on the ground has certainly changed from what was previously in place. And staff would appreciate the opportunity to provide that context to the board as it moves forward.
And what's the direct consequence? So this expired. So what hasn't happened since it expired?
I believe it's a
volume on that road now.
Sorry, somebody's
Sorry, so we have some feedback coming from online.
So I believe the agreement was really around a funding contribution, and so direct consequence, I would suppose that there is not that funding transfer.
Right. So those transfers have probably stopped at the end of the year.
I believe so. And Mark Rutten is available, our general manager of engineering services. If there's more to add, Mark, please feel free to jump in. Or if that's okay, we're okay for now. Okay.
Thanks.
Director Cole Hamilton.
Actually, thank you, Chair. I wanted to just make the same point that the Deputy CAO was regarding just the closure of the landfill at the end of last year, and that being a change of circumstance. But the reason I had my hand up was simply to make the motion. But I think I was just getting in line, but I'll put my hand down while we dispense with receipt.
Thank you. Director McCollum. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think part of what's missing for me is that I wasn't on the board when these previous agreements were decided upon, and I don't have the background as to what our policy is or the rationale for providing a new host agreement for a different type of processing facility, being the transfer station and the organics. So I just think we need to review what the policy is and a rationale before we direct staff to enter into a new agreement, as the circumstances have changed somewhat since the last one was signed. Thanks.
Director Hardy.
Thanks. Just a little bit more of a follow-up in regards to Director McCollum's comments there. I'm just having a quick look at the item and the request from Director Kerr, and then the subsequent pages afterwards is an agreement between the village, an agreement between the Comox Valley Regional District and the Village of Cumberland. So I guess if it would be more helpful for me if I did see the agreement that the expired agreement that was in place with the city of. Oh, is it further down? Okay, that would be helpful. Thanks. I just saw the Cumberland. Thank you.
Director Wells.
Thanks again, Chair. Just because I know that there's somebody chomping at the bit to get a motion going here, which I'd like to see. Again, just for comfort, whether I would say that motion should probably either include to continue the agreement until a new one is we get the report back and we can come up with a fulsome discussion around it, which we may not be able to come up with, practically a solution at the next meeting even. But either having so that it's we continue on, because I assume it's payments, it's a dollar value, in lieu of there not being a contract in place. Or again, just as a measure of comfort to say that whatever agreements could be made retroactive to when the last contract expired, just so that we're not kicking this down the road without actually making sure that Campbell River gets a fair shake, for lack of a better term.
Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I think once we get receipt, and done, I think there'll be some subsequent motions and perhaps we can move forward in that fashion.
Agreed. Okay, so on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. So that the board renew or, sorry, do you want to go ahead first? Go ahead, Cole Hamilton. Sorry, Director Cole Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to move that the board ask staff to prepare a report outlining the sort of general conditions and principles surrounding host community agreements and how they apply to the circumstance currently in Campbell River. And that would be the end of the motion. And while I appreciate Director Wells, alternate Director Wells' comments, I think that given this is a strictly financial situation, I think if we do at the very next meeting when we receive this report, see a need to act on it retroactively, I think that can be taken care of at that point. I think at this point, I think we'd all just like to get the report in our hands so we can take a look at the general frameworks we apply and see how they apply to this situation.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? You seconded. Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Oh, sorry, Director Chapman. Okay, you have a subsequent?
Once we voted on this, I have a subsequent.
We voted on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chair, I move that the previous agreement be enacted effective January 1 until such time as senior staff from Cowichan Valley Regional, the Comox Valley Regional District and the city of Campbell River have negotiated the terms and conditions and have the contract brought back to this committee.
Okay, do we have a second? Sorry, Director Cole Hamilton, you have your hand up? Is that as a second?
No, sorry, I just forgot to take that down. I'll do that now.
Okay, no problem. You'll
Director
second?
Kerr, I second it.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? No, he seconded. Yeah. You were the second first, Director Harper. Director Kerr is the second. The second. Like, exactly. Please. Motion is going to be on the screen. Okay, so let's confirm that the motion is correct.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if this is even in order, given that the previous motion that was passed was to refer the matter until such time as context and that information can come back.
So it's conflicting with the first motion that we're going to.
Trying to understand just what the outcome would be, given that the previous motion was to refer. And
So what's being said, Director Chapman, is that the first motion that we had was to defer until the next meeting so staff could do a staff report. And they're saying this could be a conflict or a contradiction of the first motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it just feels like this is the previous motion that the board just approved was to get the information to be able to come back to resolve the matter of extending or addressing the host community agreement. And I'm not sure that this motion then would be aligned with that previous motion. It may be in conflict with that motion.
Sorry, go ahead, Director Chapman. You were on seat 8. Oh, you're first. Okay, sorry, Director McCollum. Wait. There we go.
Yeah, well, my thinking was basically along the lines of what our deputy and CAO suggested, that it does seem to conflict with what we just voted on. But further, I'm not clear. I believe part of the reason why the previous contract has expired is that it's related to a facility that's now closed. So to me, I don't understand how it makes sense or is informed decision making when we're extending a contract that's related to a facility that it is not operational. So I'm just wondering if staff want to confirm that that is the case, that we would be extending a contract on a facility that's closed.
One moment, please.
Thanks. So Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, and can try to speak to that purpose of the previous agreement.
Yeah, thank you through the CAO and through the chair. The existing agreement is pretty clear on termination. So it includes under the term clause that the agreement will expire either at the end of 2022 or upon the final closure of landfilling operations at the Campbell River Waste Management Center, whichever occurs first. And the landfill did finally close in April of 2022, and that's when the termination of the contract occurred.
Okay, yeah, thanks. With that information, I will be voting against the motion. Thank you.
Point of order. This is beyond the
You were there doing a service call.
basically another order.
That's correct. That's correct. The motion is would need to be reworded on Director Chapman's motion.
Just want to take one minute for a break.
We're going to take 60 seconds to confer. So please, everybody, bear with us. We're just going to go on a short break. Thank you. 60 seconds.
See how fast they change your mind.
Thank you. So the motion from Director Chapman is in contradiction of the first motion. So unless Director Chapman would like to reword that motion, we're not going to be entertaining that second motion, and we can have a vote on that as well. So all in favor of, or pardon me, I need a motion to say that the second motion is out of order? Thank you. Second, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so Director Chapman, you can make a different, you can reword your motion so it's not a complete contradiction of the first motion, please. After I turn on your mic. There we go.
The chair, while you were having your conference, we're having our own conference. So I defer to Director Arbor.
No, it's got Director Wells, or are we going Director Arbor?
Director Arbor is my brother from another mother, but thank you, Chair. Looking at the contract, even whatever we do, the payment comes out at the end of the year. I have full confidence that an agreement will be created before the end of the year. I mean, I was looking at the $50,000 amount, which seemed fairly nominal to continue to pay because that's yearly. So it seemed like it was just a few $1,000s a month. But the fact that it's only paid on a yearly basis, the fact that this agreement that's before us expired in April. Again, it would have been useful to have this in front of us last April, but I understand, you know, maybe it was just discovered now. But yeah, I have full confidence that by the end of this year, we'll have a new agreement in place, which Councillor Cole Hamilton's motion, I think, stands very well on its own.
Thank you. Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. I think we, you know, I think during the break, I just realized the intent, I think, of the previous motion. There may not be a need for another motion. The intent of the previous motion was just to recognize that we don't really want those community agreements to lapse, you know, in the sense that there is new facility. And so it was trying to acknowledge that we don't want a lapse, like we appreciate the host communities across the system that have agreements with ERD. And I was surprised that the agreement has simply expired without the board being aware of negotiations or renewal or phase out. And so I don't think we need any further motion, in my opinion, and unless the mover of the previous one thinks so.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? No? Okay. So we're moving on to J, is that not correct? We're done. We're moving on to termination. That was quick. Sorry. Director Davis, sorry, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to raise the point that we just had at the regional district really excellent meeting with Sustained Technologies. And through to staff, I'm just wondering if we're scheduling a meeting in front of CSWM.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mark Rutten would be able to provide a brief update. Mark.
Thanks through the CAO and through the chair. So we're to directly respond to the question, we're not currently arranging for or planning a presentation by Sustain to the board. The current direction from the board is to monitor Sustain's operations in Chester for a period of 1 year once they meet full commercial operation, and then report back to the board on their performance during that 1 year period. So that was a direction from the board in 2018. They still are not in full commercial operation, and we do meet with them periodically and regularly to get updates from them on how things are going and how their work is coming along. They are definitely making progress, but it's a brand new technology, and it's taking some time to work out all the bugs. So once they're in full commercial operation, we will monitor. We have a consultant working with us. We have all the performance criteria for that monitoring in place. And once that's done, we'll be reporting back to the board. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that. I'd just like to request that we do request a presentation from them in the meantime, just to bring everybody up to speed on what it is they're doing and what the potentials are here. So if necessary, I'll make a motion.
Okay, Deputy CAO, anything to add?
Given that this is a new request, not on the board's agenda, a resolution by the board to accept this as new business would be required. Failing that, Director Davis, we can work with you to have correspondence put on your letterhead and put onto the next agenda. That is the typical process that the board follows. So if there's a resolution here to accept this as new information,
It would have to be voted on in terms of new business.
and then a resolution following that to follow through on Director Davis's request.
Okay, we're going to go to Director Wells, and then we're going to go to Director Kerr.
Yeah, this is probably preempting because we don't actually have a motion on the floor and we're be voting on it as new business. But having been heavily involved in this for about 5 years, up until 2019, and actually visiting their plant out east that was supposed to be up and running for our visit years ago. You know, my confidence in terms of where things are, and I fully get the difference between sales and technical. But on this one here, I really need to see the technical stuff, the data of they're actually fully functioning before I would, at this point, talk to another salesperson from or want to hear from another salesperson from that organization. I think they're doing great stuff. It's just we need to see the money or the thing working. Sorry.
Thank you. And we'll go to Director Graves.
Thank you. Being a living fossil that I am, I can concur with Director Wells that we did visit the site in Chester. And I would be careful to single out one particular proponent. What happened last time is we were solicited by other similar waste energy companies. And they were soliciting directors at their homes and beneath the radar of the board. So I would be really careful opening this can of worms unless we make an actual formal motion to revisit waste energy in general, because that's what we're going to get. And I'm just channeling my inner Charlie Cornfield here.
Okay, thank you. So Director Davis, you can bring to the next meeting.
I'll bring a notice of motion forward regardless, and we'll just see where it lands.
At the next meeting, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
So Director Davis will reach out to staff will reach out to you to assist with crafting something for your letterhead.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's get to termination. I'm sorry, could we have somebody say that slower, please? Do we have a second? That's pretty quick. Does anybody want to discuss it for any length of time? No? Okay, 60 minutes. All in favor? Point of order.